Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unlocking what I like to call the 360-degree communicator. Think about it for a sec. Communication isn't just about projecting your voice in class or, firing off a quick text. It's a complete circle. It spans from how we speak outwardly to our friends and teachers, right down to how we talk inwardly to ourselves. So, let's build a toolkit to help you master your message in literally any situation, online and offline.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What actually happens if a message doesn't fit the audience? I want you to imagine, just for a second, sending a super formal, highly academic email to your best friend just to invite them to the movies. Weird, right? Or worse, texting your school principal with casual slang to ask for a project extension. Yikes! Mismatched messages lead to incredibly awkward misunderstandings, or you just don't get taken seriously. Knowing your audience completely sets the stakes for everything we're looking at today.
So here's our visual syllabus for today. First up, purposeful communication. Second, crafting clear messages. Third, the power of self-talk. And finally, your online identity. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Purposeful communication.
Whenever you communicate, you're trying to achieve a goal, right? Well, the absolutely crucial first step is understanding the difference between personal and interpersonal communication. Personal communication is a space just for you, kind of like your private journals. It's informal, loose, and completely free from judgment. Interpersonal communication, however, is your interaction with others, and that demands awareness. You have to adjust your register or your level of formality. Like you'd use casual language in a Discord chat with your peers, but you definitely need a respectful tone when addressing authority figures like teachers or community leaders.
Moving right along to Section 2, crafting clear messages.
Now, clear communication doesn't just happen by accident. It's like a giant puzzle. It requires a logical structure to guide your listener. You need the right tone, which is your attitude toward the subject. You need the appropriate register, matching your formality to the setting. And finally, your style, your specific choice of words and sentence structure. And this brilliantly illustrates that when these blocks stack perfectly together, your message lands exactly how you intended. To build that logical structure, we rely on 3 basic blocks. You've probably seen these before, but honestly, they are the secret to practically all effective communication. First, the introduction, where you immediately state your main idea. Second, the body, where you support it with vivid details or examples. And finally, the conclusion, where you leave the audience with a resonant final thought. Whether you're drafting a history essay, writing an important email, or giving a big class presentation, this simple framework is your absolute best friend.
But how do we actually connect those building blocks? Well, that's where cohesive devices come in. Think of cohesive devices as the glue of your message. These are words like transitions. However, therefore, they're pronouns that save us from annoying repetition and conjunctions that connect thoughts smoothly. Without this glue, our writing and speaking can sound incredibly choppy and just disjointed. But with them, your ideas flow like a smooth, logical river from one sentence to the absolute next.
Let's look at some real examples of these tools in action based on different purposes. Take narrating an experience, for example. Notice how this uses a clear chronological structure. It starts before the contest, moves to the stage, and ends with the aftermath. It uses descriptive language to connect emotionally with us. We can feel the nervousness, but also the resulting confidence. It tells a perfectly structured miniature story.
Now contrast that emotional story with a totally different purpose, reporting observations. Notice the massive shift in tone and style here? This requires a clear, objective, and accurate structure. There are literally no highly emotional or biased terms. It simply tells us what happened in a logical order using strictly factual language. So when you need to report information, clarity and objectivity are your ultimate goals.
For our third example, let's talk about expressing opinions. This is a brilliant way to state a position. It starts right off with a clear statement, I believe, and then it provides logical reasoning, like how budgeting and cooking prepare us for real life. It's persuasive, sure, but the language remains highly respectful without attacking other viewpoints. It simply builds a really strong, logical case for its own.
All right, to wrap up this toolkit, here are your rapid-fire, actionable takeaways for clear writing and speaking. 1. Identify your purpose. 2. Know your audience. 3. Use a clear structure. 4. Apply those cohesive devices. Remember the glue? And 5. Most importantly, revise and refine your message. Keep this checklist in your back pocket whenever you sit down to draft a school assignment, a critical email, or a speech. Let's move to Section 3 and see how this all builds. The power of self-talk.
So we are now pivoting from outward communication to inward reflection. the inside part of our 360-degree approach. We call this intrapersonal communication. It's your internal monologue, your self-talk, and your personal evaluations. Guys, this is the absolute foundation for personal growth. By communicating well with yourself, you build resilience, you develop emotional intelligence, and you gain self-awareness. It even helps you regulate your emotions and make much better decisions.
Let's take a quick interactive pause here. How can writing privately help you when you just don't want to talk? I want you to think about a recent time you felt totally overwhelmed by schoolwork or maybe some social drama. Sometimes we just aren't ready to share those feelings interpersonally. Private writing allows us to process heavy, chaotic thoughts in a safe space, completely free from an audience judging us.
There are two main ways we tend to write for ourselves, and it's actually really important to know the difference. First up, we have the diary entry. This is your informal, unfiltered emotional release. Imagine coming home and just venting on paper about having 2 tough quizzes and forgetting your lunch. It captures your raw daily experiences and is amazing for stress relief. On the flip side, we have a journal reflection. This is way more structured and introspective. Instead of just venting, a journal goes deeper. You might track that you feel anxious before class presentations, but instead of just complaining about it, you analyze why it matters, and you set a goal, like deciding to rehearse more with friends to build your confidence. Basically, diaries release, but journals build.
And that brings us to our final section, your online identity.
Now we take that personal identity we've just explored and carefully package it for the digital world. The modern communicator has to balance physical and digital spaces. Crafting your online profile and managing your social feeds requires intense intention. You have to balance authentic self-expression with privacy. It's all about keeping a consistent personal voice that reflects your true values while remembering that your online presence is a semi-public space where peers, teachers, and eventually employers are going to see you.
Now, what's really interesting here is how much can be achieved with so few words. Take a look at this sample social media bio. It perfectly expresses identity and values, creative thinker, learning leader. It clearly shows who this person is. But notice what it doesn't do. It doesn't overshare sensitive info, and it avoids overly dramatic or vague language. It is polished, concise, and highly intentional.
And that brings us to these absolute crucial tips for digital responsibility. Look, being authentic online is great, but it also means being thoughtful and safe. Number 1, do not overshare personal information. Number 2, always use strong passwords and actively manage your privacy settings. Number 3, respect your own boundaries, and just as importantly, respect the boundaries of others. And above all, think before posting. Because what you share stays online, and it contributes to your digital footprint forever.
To wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How can being honest in your private, intrapersonal writing actually help you become a better communicator with the rest of the world? Seriously, think about it. If you can clearly articulate your fears, your goals, and your values to yourself in a private journal, you are already doing the hard work of organizing your thoughts. You are mastering the inside. And once you master that internal self-talk, you will be absolutely amazed at how much easier, clearer, and more impactful your external, interpersonal communication becomes. You literally become a true 360-degree communicator. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep practicing those communication skills.